Hey guys, welcome back to the Pulse podcast, where we give small answers to the big questions people have about the faith. I'm your host Tariq, and I'm joined here with MT. How are we doing, Mike? You well?
Ready to give small answers to the big questions people have about the Christian faith.
Awesome. And you got the glasses on, so that means we're going to get a really good answer this episode, right?
Good one.
Let's dive right in. So today's question: what principles should guide a Christian in investing, building wealth, and wealth management?
Yeah, good. I mean, it's important to know, when people ask about, advice, there are a million things to say. So everything I'm saying is not exhaustive. These are sort of three things that I sort of picked from scripture that's important. At the onset, I would recommend a book called Business to the Glory of God by Wayne Grudem. Even if you're not in business, it's a good book because it goes into detail about, is profit godly? Just clearing up misconceptions people have about some terms that have accrued a lot of dirt. Quite frankly, people are like, being a millionaire is exploitative, and these sort of views that you hear in mainstream culture.
Sure.
Okay, wealth, money, investing. Number one, a key principle is stewardship. Recognize that God owns everything, and He's given you stewardship over everything. Psalms 24. The earth is the Lord, everything in it, the world and all who live in it. It makes it clear that everything belongs to God. And so whether it's £10, £100, £1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, whatever you have, God owns it, and He's given you stewardship over it. That means all your wealth and your resources are gifts from God, and so you need to manage it in keeping with His word, in keeping with His purposes. Every single penny in your bank account, God is sovereign over. And so you have that mindset of, how do I account for how I'm spending this money? Whether I'm investing, I'm building wealth, how do I prioritize using these resources to glorify God, to care for families, to support the needs of others, right? Rather than purely seeking luxury and the new, nicely branded whatever, right? You don't get to take any of that with you when you go. So you should be thinking, how do I use this? I'm stewarding this, right? The second principle is to do well to avoid greed, right? In 1 Timothy 6, pretty much the whole chapter, but we can look at maybe 6 that says godliness plus contentment is a great gain, or 9, which says those who want to be rich fall into temptation and traps, and says for the love of money is the root of all evil. While building wealth isn't inherently wrong, Christians are called to avoid, making wealth an idol. This idea that when I'm rich, that's when I'll be respected. That's when I'll be known. That's when I would have achieved my goals, right? Instead, we're to seek contentment, trusting that God will provide for all our needs, right? So a key aspect of Christian wealth management is generosity. Use your wealth to bless others. If you want to make sure you don't get conceited and greedy, and give away your money. That's the one thing that, when I meet people, I've met some people who are rich, like young people who are making good money, and they're like, I just want to make sure I'm not greedy. I'm like, give it away. You don't have to pray, you don't have to fast, you don't have to lay hands, just give it away. Learn to give money away, right? Because money tends to be sticky. We want to keep it, and we want to use it to measure our, I know this because I gave an example once on maybe a podcast like this, that there was one day, I joined Monzo Bank. I think it was my first few weeks on Monzo, and I heard that sound that it makes when you get money. And I felt better. When it went tinch, and I felt better. And I thought to myself, that's so interesting. I actually feel better. Now, why did I feel better? Nothing changed. I just had more money in my bank account. And in that moment, just thinking, I was like, how crazy is it that my mood is directly tied to the money in my account? No, I didn't go and spend it immediately. I just felt better. And that was enough for me to kind of start this process of really just introspection and going, Mike, why? So what? When it leaves, do you feel worse? And really investigating. The third thing, or third principle I would advocate for people is to plan wisely. Practice diligence, avoid debt, right? Proverbs 21, it says this, 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. Proverbs 22:7 says this: the borrower is slave to the lender, right? While responsible debt can be good and necessary, Christians should avoid debt that may burden them and lead to financial bondage. I know bondage is a word we grew up hearing in some of our Pentecostal churches, but there is bondage in this real world, and it's financial sometimes for people. Instead, we should be focused on financial freedom and sustainability. So I think Christians ought to plan weekly for their finances. They ought to spend time monthly going, how much am I making? How much am I just leaving? What needs to not leave? What debts can I pay? Am I going to just leave some debt to accrue and get worse? Can I take a pause and really work out how to pay off my debts? All of those things, I think, are part of good stewardship, effective management, and wealth building.
No, awesome. And, we know, like, in the Bible, it speaks about, tithing and the 10%. But speak a little bit more on like the tithe and also offerings, because I just like to hear.
Yeah.
Kind of
well, to be fair, we've done an episode on tithing, right? And I think it's another topic that we can go into in great detail. But the tithe was just meant a tenth in the Old Testament that in completing and looking after the temple and supporting Levites and supporting ministers, a tithe, which is a tenth of wealth and resources, was said to be given. So it wasn't just like an income given. It was sometimes even, animals and sometimes resources and stuff like that. Yeah. The truth is, in the New Testament, Jesus came to fulfill the law. So he came to add more light and accentuate sort of key biblical doctrines. Yeah. We learned that all our wealth belongs to the Lord, right? Right? Jesus made it clear. He took Psalms 24 and made it clear. Everything. God doesn't own 10%. He owns everything. Yeah. So the way I think about tithing, which I don't think is a New Testament sort of requirement anymore, but I still think it's a good sort of financial principle to get into the habit of giving God a specified sort of percentage. But I would see a tithe as a given floor, not a given ceiling. Yes. So rather than begrudgingly going to God and going, oh, here's my tenth, instead you go, God, you owns everything. How do I give my money, my energy, my time, my life, if you like, to God's work and his ministry so I can see it flourish? And it's in keeping with this generosity point. You can always test whether your heart is in the right place by how generous you're willing to be. Yeah. If you're always like, I don't want to lose money, I want him to lose money for me, that's sometimes a good test to go, why aren't I willing here to give, to bless, And, the hand of the giver is always on top. God does profit and make provisions for those who give, because they're in keeping with how he lives. God gives. God's a giver. Yeah. And that's why he loves a cheerful giver, because you look like him when you're generous, because that's what he is. So that's the mindset shift that has to happen in people who are thinking about wealth or investment or that sort of stuff. You have to start thinking, how do I look like God when I'm lord over my money? Like, how do I look like him? And how do I not look like someone else?
No, that's really, really helpful, Mike. So thank you for sharing. And if there was any one of the principles that stood out to you, please drop a comment below and let us know why. But we thank you again for joining us. And again, like, comment, and share this video with a friend if you found it useful. And if you have any questions for us that haven't been answered in this season, drop us a DM on Instagram or email us at hello@ourgodgivenmission.com. We'd love to hear more questions from the community. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Hey, thank you so much for watching that video and for staying all the way till the end. We are on a journey to 10,000 subscribers. So if you like that video, if you want to see more from us, if you want to support us, do so by clicking the subscribe button. Our mission here is to help you discover Jesus and to equip you to make him known. So keep talking about Jesus and hit the subscribe button.